Hello, my name is Charlie Peter Paul. I'm chief of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Zagam is chief in Mi'kmaq. So I guess I would have to go back even further because it is about like being a chief or a Zagam is about being the leader, right? And so you think of who the leaders are in your family, right? You have leaders in your family, so we know who they are. And then, so it's like every family would have a strong leader, and those were those leaders because they were the ones protecting their families. It was, so you would have, a tribe could be made up of, 20 different families. So you would have 20 different leaders there, and then those leaders would elect a leader. But the true leaders in the communities, how I understand it, were the women. So if the women would know, what's going on in regards to food or their safety, because they would be the ones out there with the children, even though they weren't the ultimate decision makers, they were the ones that were prompting change. They would say, okay, hey, my kids didn't eat last night, so they'd tell one mother, well, my kids didn't eat, we don't have any food, we're getting nervous. So then, the women would get together and they talk to, whoever their leader was, and then that they would go and talk to the chief. They'd be like, okay, tell the chief, hey, our kids didn't eat last night, we got to think about moving or something, And so the chief would be like, yeah, okay. And then, the chief would go and he'd meet with all the council, and then, he'd meet with the council and he'd say, okay, we ran out of food last night. These kids didn't eat, so we got to go, down to, let's say Sebago Lake, right? So we're going to Sebago Lake. And so immediately you would see some people get up and they would leave. And those people, they would be the ones cutting the way through the forest, marking the trail, right? So there would be some of those people that would leave in the beginning. And then, after a while, everybody else, there would be like a lot of chatter around the community, like, oh, we're leaving. And so people would just start getting ready, and then they would follow the trail that was meant for them. And then later on in time, you would see the people at the end were cleaning up and making sure that, everything was in order so they could leave. They didn't forget anybody. They had, make sure that if they came back, they had their place ready to go. And then along the way, if there was somebody lagging behind, they would bring them, things like that. And then the people that left first were the ones setting up the camp, scouting around, looking where all the game were. So like back then, everybody had a job, even like people, that were worried. You need all different types of people. You need warriors, you need everybody, everybody fits in because those are those checks and balances, because sometimes, you might have somebody that's too relaxed, or then that somebody is too pushy, and then, you come together, and there is always that happy medium. Mm-hmm. So, people always had something to do. And
when the tribal government was first being formed, did you guys get to decide how that was made, or was that kind of like a system that was put in place for you? Like, do you have a similar government to the Malsi and the Penobscot, or is it like one that you guys got to make yourself?
No, we made that ourselves. There's 9 council people, chief, vice chief, and 7 council. And we have alternate terms now. Every 4 years, there's a switch. Getting on council is we usually have a community meeting, and you have to be nominated and second, and then if you don't decline, then you can run for council. But we get elected by the community, and whoever gets the most votes, for that position will get that spot. And we've had elections every 2 years since, and a lot of times we had elections, and because we're so far apart, and there's different family groups making different friends, that turned into a lot of little cliques. And usually, if somebody got elected this year, within a year and a half, they say, well, he ain't done nothing. Be all kinds of complaints. So they vote him out next, 2 years' time, and they put somebody else in there. But the native laws, and the funding is so complicated, that it takes 2 years to even learn what you're doing, So it's a little better now that we have staggered terms and we're in there for 4 years. But even with that, you know how fast the government works? That's how fast the tribe works.
So the chain of command is the community. That's similar to times in the past where, if they have complaints, generally it's supposed to go, you have a community complaint, and then they complain to the council member would complain to me, and then I would make sure that whatever was complained about is fixed or settled.
The chief can make a decision, but it's the council that makes the final decision, and it's anything that needs approval needs to come to the council. All resolutions need to come to the council.
We do have Wabanaki Confederacy. That's a, I wouldn't say it's a political entity. It's more cultural and spiritual.
So is the tribe here fully independent from the Mi'kmaq Nation? Or is there any sort of government that exists for the total Mi'kmaq Nation with the main branch and all the ones in Canada?
No.
So you're all independent but part of a larger identity, essentially?
Yes, we are all independent. They have the Union of New Brunswick Indians. That's in Fredericton. And, they get together and make decisions what's best for all the reservations in New Brunswick. They also have the Union of Nova Scotia Indians. They have Union of Mainland Nova Scotia Indians, and they do the same thing. It would be like United Southern Eastern Tribes here. We don't belong to that, but we do belong to USET. But although we're all working together, they bring in a lot of money, and that don't trickle down to the tribes. But the programs, we get helped out with the programs and stuff. But and we don't belong. And the bottom line is we don't belong to have any connections to any of the bands in Nova Scotia, other than me as a member of this tribe here. I am also a member of Buchtankirk in mainland Nova Scotia.
I think that there's definitely a benefit to having a Mi'kmaq Nation here in the United States. I think we need to exploit that a little bit more and figure out what are those ultimate benefits. I don't think those have been fully ironed out. I think it's a matter of time, and it's a matter of progression.